This video covers our 2018 trip to Northern Europe, where we visited Norway, the 3 Baltic countries, and Finland. This is part 1 of a 2-part video covering just the Norwegian Coastal Voyage from Kirkenes in the north to Bergen in the south. After the coastal voyage, we actually flew from Bergen through Copenhagen to Vilnius, Lithuania, and then visited the 3 Baltic countries. We began our trip from San Diego to London and on to Oslo via British Airways. After overnight in Oslo, we departed the next morning for Kirkenes in northern Norway. After arrival in Kirkenes at the airport, we hopped a transfer bus into town and checked into one of the 3 major hotels in Kirkenes, the Standig Hotel. And after that, we took a little walk around the church area and the central square where they had the war monument. The following morning, we decided to take a walk around town. We first started out to visit the Varinger Museum that contained a lot of artifacts from World War II, more like a history museum of the area. And that we followed by a walk in the outskirts overlooking the town from above, and then visited a few other areas in town, namely a bomb shelter used during World War II, Soviet Liberation Monument. There's a lot of Soviet presence here because of its proximity to the Russian border. And then had a very nice dinner at our hotel before we were going to get ready for the next day to start our voyage south. On the 17th of October, we boarded a Hurtigruten ship, the Trollefjord, to begin our 6-day voyage south along the Norwegian coast to Bergen. Although we were going to stop at approximately 30 different ports during the course of the tour, most were for only 15 to 30 minutes. There were only approximately 6 or 7 ports that were long enough that we could actually leave the ship and take advantage of some short excursions. And those were in Vardø, Hammerfest, Harstad, Sortland, Sovar, Trondheim, and then finally when we arrived at Bergen, where we spent an additional 3 nights. So as the ship departed, we said goodbye to Kirkenes and started south. Our first stop came at the tiny island of Vardø to visit the Vardø Fortress. A fortress was originally built in the 13th century, but the current one only dates back to the 17th. It was used in World War I and World War II as an active site during both wars. On our second day, we arrived at Hammerfest for a 2-hour stay, where we took a bus trip around town, looked at some of the sights, visited the church and the museum in town. You can tell they get a lot of snow in Norway, judging from all the snow fences on the hillsides to prevent avalanches. They also use the old construction methods of the Vikings: wood frames with peat on the side and moss on the top. We actually watched a new home being constructed in this particular manner. As part of our bus tour, we stopped on a hillside overlooking town, where you could tell that none of the buildings looked extremely old, because the Germans completely destroyed the city during World War II and had to be rebuilt. So after this visit, we drove back into town and then visited the Museum of Reconstruction. Leaving Hammerfest, the weather started to become a little more cloudy, and scenery though became a little more spectacular. You could see the snow up in the mountains and the glaciers up above, left over from the previous winter. Well, we continued to follow our path south and enjoyed the scenery. Shortly before midnight, we arrived in Tromsø, where Lily stayed on the ship while I left and attended a midnight concert at the Arctic Cathedral. The following day, as we arrived in Harstad in the Lofoten Islands, we left the ship as the ship then sailed on to Sortland, and we took a bus trip through the islands and then met the ship in Sortland to continue our voyage. stopped along the way at a freshwater lake that has an unusual condition where the lake empties into the sea, and dependent upon the tide, the water either flows in from our lake to the river into the ocean, or from the ocean through a river back into the lake. So as you're standing here, you can see right now that the tide is up and the river is flowing into the lake, putting salt water into the freshwater lake. In order to get to Sortland, we had to cross over another island, so we needed to take a ferry to do so. To get to Sortland, we had to cross a bridge into the city, and they had timed our arrival so that as the ship was coming in, it had to go under the bridge. We went over the bridge at exactly the same moment, so we crossed right over the top of our ship. Shortly after leaving Sortland, we visited the fjord that our ship was named after. Shortly after the fjord, we visited the town of Svolvær. Going ashore, I ran into this museum, which I didn't know existed there, that had the most amazing display of World War II uniforms, guns, weapons, any kind of artifacts that you could imagine. I could have spent probably a half a day just looking at all of these exhibits. It was just, like I said, it was an amazing place. September 20th, our fourth day out, things changed drastically. After leaving Solvær, we had to go out into the Norwegian Sea, so we're now not being sheltered by the Lofoten Islands anymore. And the weather started to get a little bit more nasty and rainy, windy, you name it. It got pretty bad for the next couple of days. Finally, the weather got so bad that they actually canceled the shore excursions for the last 2 days of the trip. Approximately halfway through the voyage south, we reached the Arctic Circle, where there was a marker on an island, and one of the traditions is a ceremony that is performed and everyone receives a spoon of cod liver oil. When I got up the next morning, I found out that the weather was so bad the previous night that the wind blew a chair off of the upper deck and slammed it into 2 plate glass windows on the deck below that had to be shored up. It also caused several cracks in some of the other windows. Our last major stop on this voyage before it reached Bergen was the third largest city in Norway, Trondheim, with a current population of about 200,000. Originally established in 997 by King Olaf, the city was originally named Nidaros, which meant the mouth of the river Nid in the Norse language. But during the Middle Ages, when it was under the United Kingdom of Denmark and Norway, the city's name was changed to Trondheim. But then in 1928, there was a referendum to change the name back to Nidaros. It didn't go over too well. However, the city was named Nidaros from January 1930 to March 1931, when it was changed back to Trondheim. However, the diocese of the city remained the Nidaros diocese, and that's why the cathedral is named the Nidaros Cathedral. The Viking king Olaf II reigned from 1015 to 1028. He was killed in battle in 1030, and the following year he was canonized as Saint Olaf. In 1070 then, the cathedral was started at his burial place and was finished mostly by 1300. final day, the weather finally started to improve. We arrived in Bergen in the afternoon of September 22nd and transferred to our hotel Clarion, which was adjacent to the Bergen Historic District, Harbor District in Bergen. Shortly after checking in, we found that there was a waffle snack available at 3 p.m. every day, so naturally we had to partake. The rest of the afternoon and evening we just strolled through the historic Bergen area of the city, which was a series of buildings that were originally built by the Hanseatic League of Merchants to store stockfish that was exported and bringing in cereal from Europe. But now it's mostly buildings that are used for tourist shops, artist shops, and places just to browse and shop and look around. Also walking around town, we discovered a sausage shop that sold about a dozen different sausages, one of which was reindeer. It was very good. The fish market in Bergen has been in existence since the 1200s, and it's been one of the most important places for trade between fishermen, farmers, and the inhabitants of the city. The following morning we took a short walk to Fløibanen, which is a funicular that goes up to the top of Mount Fløyen. Mount Fløyen is one of 7 mountains that surround Bergen. There are 4 others that are actually taller, but Fløyen provides, I think, the best view of the city center and the historic wharf areas. Another popular one was Mount Uriken, which is 750 feet higher and has a cable car that goes up, but it's further away, and although it provides a more surrounding view of Bergen, Fløyen is actually the 4th most popular tourist attraction in the country of Norway. our visit to the top of Mount Floyen, we decided to explore some more of the town. So we continued to walk throughout the town and visiting church, and of course I also had to get my reindeer sausage once again, and then we spent a few hours at the Hanseatic Museum. The Hanseatic Museum and Schatztruhen are located in the historic district of Bergen, and they show how the German merchants from the Hanseatic League lived and worked for over 400 years, trading stockfish and grains from their office in Bergen. The museum opened in 1872 and Schatztruhen in 1938. Schatztruhen was located next to the old St. Mary's Church. Like I said, was used during the winter months and was separate from the rest of the main buildings used as the living quarters, working and storage areas or warehouses due to the possibility of fire, because this is where hot meals were served in the winter. They're also used though for teaching, courtrooms, meeting rooms, and party rooms. On our last full day in Bergen, we got up in the morning and took a ferry ride across the harbor, and then a fairly long walk to the Bergen Aquarium. We arrived at the aquarium just in time for the penguin feeding.
Bøylepingviner, eller også kalt genturpingviner. De er opprinnelig fra sørkysten av Chile og videre mot Sydpolen. Hvordan man ser at det er en bøylepingvin, det er på den hvite bøylen som går fra øye til øye. Okay, this is the bird pond because the bird pond, because penguins are, as you probably know, birds. They just have very tight feathers, that's the tightest of all birds, and at least they're not used to fly. What they use them for is brown standard walk. They also use it to regulate temperature, you can either control it for swimming, which they're extremely good at, and they can also use it to fight with, and they can hit extremely hard with them. This species you see here are Gentoo penguins, and they're originally from the south coast of Chile and further to the south pole. And you can see it's a Gentoo by these white stripes that go from eye to eye. Og så sånn når Markus drev her nå, så tøker han jo svær fisk i gapet på disse små fuglene. Det ser jo ganske drøyt ut. Men hvorfor vi bruker denne størrelsen? Det er fordi at dette er en størrelse vi spist mye av i naturen. Og det meste vi har fôret en av de små rakkerne her med, det er 12 sånne på en fôring. Det er cirka en tredjedel av klåspekten deres, så det er helt vilt at det går an. You see the... Look, the swimming is beautiful. You see the size. Martyrs are feeding them with.
Kim here, she's an 18-year-old Californian sea lion with a pretty careful and shy personality. But she's really agile. Og California-sjøløver er faktisk raskere enn alle andre typer sel og sjøløver. And Californian sea lions, they are faster than all other pinnipeds. Det er utrolig kjekt å se at det er så mange som har tatt turen til oss her i dag. It's great to see all of you guests here today, so let's take a high five for that.
Other exhibits at the aquarium consisted of snakes and of course a lot of fish tanks, some frogs and some lizards, and a number of other animals like a sea otter and what else? There was a marmoset monkey, though we didn't see the shark tunnel. It appeared as though the aquarium was not operating up to full strength at the time. I don't know if it is partially shut down because of the time of year or what, but it just didn't seem to be operating at full capacity. After visiting the Bergen Aquarium, we walked through some of the narrow streets down towards the city center. My last place visited was Bergen House Castle, the oldest preserved stone fortification in Norway, and the best preserved. It dates back to about the 1240s, but some construction was as recent as World War II. It was in a fairly extensive area which contained the royal residence of Bergen, as well as a cathedral, churches, a bishop's residence, and a monastery. Back at the hotel, I got the key to the spiral staircase going up to the tower of the hotel to provide a view of Bergen and the historical wharf area. Finally, I had to make sure that I had room for one more waffle at the hotel, and also had to get my last reindeer sausage. The following morning, we left Bergen for our flight through Copenhagen to Vilnius to begin our Baltic country tours.